Hello, and welcome to Incisive Visionary Minds of the Visual Arts. I'm Chaz Filmaker, and today we're going to be joined by the one, the only, Neil Smugman, the creator of The Worst of Guys. Hello, how are you, Mr. Smugman? Oh, thank you, Chaz. I'm doing quite well. However, I do prefer to be addressed as Visionary Genius Neil Smugman. You have to say the entire thing. It's like a Tribe Called Quest. Visionary Genius Neil Smugman. Game development is considered a very difficult trade. Could you perhaps share some stories about the development of The Worst of Guys? Well, you see, Chaz, before The Worst of Guys was released in 2013 for the PlayStation 3, most video games were about these stupid little invaders flying around in space and shooting each other. It was stupid. It was juvenile. I, on the other hand, single-handedly elevated the medium to an art form by aping film tropes. I am a genius. Now, Visionary Genius Neil Smugman, as you know, your game, The Worst of Guys franchise is very popular. It was very warmly received by millions of fans. All sorts of people are posting videos online singing the praises of your genius. We have some clips we can roll.
Guys, I don't play video games for fun or to be challenged. That's not what they're about. They're much more than that. They're about proving that I'm intellectually superior to those douchebag, dude-bro jocks from high school who play Call of Duty. They're Philistines. They play games for the gameplay. What am I supposed to enjoy things like a child? That's beneath me.
Visionary Genius Neil Smugman, do you have anything you'd like to say to your legions of fans? Well, you see, the fans are correct to praise me. You see, I'm what's known as an auteur. They are beneath me. I am like their shepherds, leading them through the world of media literacy. Visionary Genius Neil Smugman, now, you're a very successful individual. You've released many beloved pieces of art. Do you have any regrets in your life? Now that is a very difficult question, Chaz. You know, someone as skilled and illustrious, someone who's lived a life as rich and satisfying as me, doesn't have many regrets in life. There is one. I was kicked out of film school for selling cocaine. I do regret that, because had that not happened, I would have been making films this entire time instead of wasting my time with that rubbish, like Randy Ratatouille, the little rat who spins on the PlayStation. That is not art. Art is when you're sad and you're miserable and you're violent, and you continuously, you look directly into the camera and say, revenge is bad. You need to stop the perpetual cycle of violence, while simultaneously shooting 400 anonymous thugs. That is art. That is what makes me feel things. Visionary Genius Neil Smugman, could you perhaps share some insight into what was going on in your mind during the creation of the film adaptation of The Worst of Guys? Well, you know, I really have to say, my favorite part of working with the Fraud Crew, making The Worst of Guys Fraud Crew Original, our film adaptation of our brilliant video game, is that I finally get to answer my life's calling, do what I was really put on this earth to do, and that's make real art. Film. Not a video game. Film. Something that I can be proud of. Something that my mother won't judge me for making for a living. Visionary Genius Neil Smugman. Now, as many people as there are who love The Worst of Guys, there's also many, many detractors. We have some clips. Could we roll those?
What's going on, guys? Jeremy Hamburger here. This is the Quarter Pounder, and I'm here to discuss The Worst of Guys today. But before we get to that, please like and subscribe. Helps the channel out, fighting against the woke agenda of the liberal media and freedom everywhere. Now, if you please excuse me, I'm going to have an axe to grind for a moment, because The Worst of Guys 2 was released. was a big fan of the first Worst of Guys, a true right-wing masterpiece of epic proportions. And I was very excited, always being a fan of the Worst of Guys series. But now I can't enjoy the product anymore. And I have to warn you all about the woke lib agenda that the game has now thrusted upon us. For in The Worst of Guys 2, it has a woman, a female. I cannot support The Worst of Guys 2. I am outraged by Neil Smugman for including this woke cuck agenda for the libs. This is a disgrace to us and to gamers everywhere. And I must implore us that we must boycott this game and give him the valid criticism he needs by sending death threats to his house and threatening his family. Now, if you please excuse me, I have to use the bathroom. Where's my bucket? Where's my bucket? Where's my bucket?
Visionary genius Neil Smugman, do you have any choice words for that Philistine? Well, frankly, I honestly, I have to say, they're all just reactionary, right-wing, misogynist homophobes. The very notion that someone could dare criticize my brilliant, genius, visionary art without some sort of ulterior motive is just unthinkable. It's unfathomable. Visionary genius Neil Smugman, you've accomplished so much in your life, but there's always room for more. Do you have any plans for the future? Well, yes, Chaz, we actually have a lot coming down the pipeline. As you know, we just recently released our film adaptation of The Worst of Guys, thanks to the Fraud Krew and Fraud TV. We just released The Worst of Guys Part 2. Pretty soon, The Worst of Guys Part 1 is going to be coming out, followed by The Worst of Guys Part 2, Part 1. You see, the thing is, despite me being a visionary genius and all of my art being absolutely flawless, the computers, the consoles, the hardware of the time, it was just holding us back. It was holding me back from expressing my true artistic intent. You see, they simply couldn't render all of the skin pores on all of the character models, and I feel like that's very important to help you feel who these characters are as people, to help me express my true artistic intent. It's very important that you give me $70. That is so unbelievably interesting. You are truly God's gift to media. Thank you so much. Art, culture, the entire human race owes a great debt to you and The Worst of Guys. Thank you so much for joining us here. And thank you too for tuning in to Incisive Visionary Minds of the Visual Arts. Thank you and good night. Thank you once again for joining us for another rousing episode of Incisive Visionary Minds of the Visual Arts. I'm your host, Chaz Filmaker. We were joined today by visionary genius Neil Smugman, the creator of The Worst of Guys. Don't forget to purchase specially marked packages of Dorito Singular so you could redeem your redemption code and get your Dorito Singular The Worst of Guys skin. And you'll also be entered in the Pripyat Getaway Sweepstakes. Be sure to join us next week on Incisive Visionary Minds of the Visual Arts, when we'll be joined by Jim Carrey, who originally auditioned to play the role of John Handgun in the film adaptation of The Worst of Guys. So when I first caught wind that they were making a film adaptation of The Worst of Guys, I told Neil Smugman, "Neil, put me in, coach. I want to be John Handgun. I could do it real good. I'm not just a comedy guy, I'm a serious actor too. Listen, watch. I'm a bearded white man with a gun whose wife has died. When I see a dog, I go, Aruga, and then I shoot him. And he said, Jim Carrey, shut the fuck up.